Hey guys, this is the Game Century, and today I will be doing something different today. Today I will be sharing with you the basics of Unity and how to use the basics of using this game engine. So with that, we're going to be creating a very simple 2D game to give you a basics of scripting and just a basic of how to use for you to be comfortable with the layout of Unity. So first, what you need to do if you don't have Unity already, if you just go to type in Unity, and you go to download, you can just accept terms and download Unity Hub. And once you do that and install it, you'll have Unity Hub on your desktop. So go ahead and do that. I'm just gonna remove. Okay. So, anyways, so when you get to the projects window, this is where all your projects are gonna be, and you're gonna click on new. And since we are creating a simple 2D game, we are going to need to click a 2D template. Then we need to name this project anything you want. I'm just going to name it YouTube tutorial. Now before we click create, we need to change the location of this. So go to your desktop and create a new folder and name it I recommend naming it the same name as your project, but you don't necessarily have to. So go to location and click the three dots and select that folder from your desktop. And then click create. Now this is a long process and it may take a long time for it to load in the assets. It may take you shorter, just depending on how good your computer runs. But you're just going to wait for a bit until Unity loads up. And we are going to be using C# to program with Unity. Because Unity comes with JavaScript and C#, but we are going to be using C# because. And also, you should be using Visual Studio for your scripting. It's automatically installed with it. And I don't think Unity supports mono develop anymore. So Visual Studio is possibly your only option for a default scripting software. So there are, I am going to be trying making more Unity tutorials after this. So if you like this tutorial, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and I'll see if you guys would like to see any other type of tutorial. There should be a timestamp of when it is loaded. Okay, we have Unity loaded up. So right now there's a lot of windows, but I'm going to try to explain them. We have the hierarchy right here. This is where all the objects in the scene are going to be. So you don't have to don't do this, but I'm just going to create a square. If I drag it in, it's in the hierarchy and it's now visible in the scene. So now we can drag it, we can scale it, we can rotate it, although it is 2D, so it's a little hard to rotate. So yeah, that is that. So we can delete that, delete that. And then if we saw on the right, this is the inspector, and I probably should have kept it on there. The square. So if we click the square, we have the inspector. We have a whole bunch of options for this object, and we have more options here. So right here on the top, you have the transform, which is the location and scaling and rotation of your object. So if we move it along the x-axis, we can see the x-axis is changing, and up and down is the y-axis. And since it's a 2D game, we don't really have a z-axis, which would be towards us, and we like towards us and behind. So basically a coordinate plane. So we're not gonna go ahead. We're not gonna bother with explaining everything right now. I'll just try to go step it. Try to explain it as we're doing the tutorial. So down here, as you see, being doing stuff, we have the project panel. This is where you keep all your objects that are not in the scene and all the templates for things and also your scripts. So what we're gonna do is open up scenes and go ahead and save the scene by doing Control S to save the scene. And then we're gonna rename this by clicking it and press F2. Then rename it anything you want, but I'm gonna rename it main scene. Click reload, and now it is loaded. So now we're gonna create a few folders. So you right click, go to create, click folder at the top. We're gonna name this one sprites. And a sprite is just a name for a 2D object. Then we're gonna right click again, go to create, and folder. Then we're gonna name this scripts. So this is the folder that's gonna keep our scripts. Then let's make one more folder. Let's name this prefabs. This is gonna I'll explain what prefab is later, but just keep this folder here for now. So if we go into our sprites folder, we can right click and go to create, go down to sprites, then click square. So now you create a sprite. Now you created a square. Now do the same thing, go to create, sprites, but now this time click circle. Now I also need to explain these two. This is the scene view. The scene view is what they get to modify objects and to be able to move them around easier. The game view is what the people who are going to be playing the game are going to see. So make sure you change this aspect ratio up here to 16:9 because that's the ratio for most desktops. And go back to scene. And I want to change the background of this because I don't like this type of blue. I do want it to be blue, well, we can change it to black. I have a black background. So you go to scene, click main camera. Then if you go to background right here, you're going to click the color. Then you have a color panel. So for black, you just go right down, and for the RGBA is 000, and this is opacity, or the alpha. How so you can make it as dark as you want or transparent as you want. So I'm gonna go ahead and just leave it there. So that's that. Now we have a black background. So now we want to drag the circle and the square into our scene. So let's just undo that so you can see. So the circle is going to be our ball, so we're going to rename it ball because we're making and then we're also going to drag one more square in. For square is going to be our target, so we're going to name the square target. And this is going to be our shooter, so we're going to rename this shooter. So for our ball, we want it to be down here. So for our transform position, we make the x 0 because we still want it in the center. And for y, we can put it to -3. And that should be good. And also, it's a little big for a ball. So if we're going to scale, we need to bring it down a little bit. So maybe 0.75 and 0.75. So now it is smaller. We can make it smaller, even smaller. You can go to 0.5 if you want. And I might keep it at 0.5. We'll see how it goes. And then we also have two more 2 more squares. So the target, we want this to be up here as the target. So we're going to bring the position back to 0 for the x-axis, because we still want it in the center. Then let's put the y to 3, so it's up here. Now we want to scale it so it's bigger and longer. So for x, we want to change it to something like 5. And then it is a little thick, so we want to maybe something like 0.5 should be fine. And that should be good. So now we have this other shooter. So we want the shooter to be covering the ball, because we want the shooter to be able to launch the ball once we click the mouse. So to do that, just go back to y, do -3. Oh, that's the scaling. Go to y position, -3. And there we go. So we have that. It's all said and done. And now we have the target. And we're going to need to add a few objects to this target. So if you click Add a Component down here, change this. We're going to add a rigid body 2D. Our rigid body adds physics to the object, so we'll be able to collide with it and be able to move using rigid body methods. So we need to change some settings. So for angular drag, we don't want to have any drag. We do not want to have gravity on it. And for collision detection, we want continuous, because discrete is when it's where the collision it only happens once, but continuous, we want this collision to happening multiple times. So, and also we go to constraints. We need a freeze position on the y and the z axis, because when the ball hits it, we don't want the target to be going all wobbly. But we just want to stay still and just keep going back and forth like that. So now we need a box collider. A box collider is what we're going to be using to trigger when when the ball comes, we want the box collider to trigger and tell the game that the ball has hit the object. So before we do that, we need to actually start moving it back and forth. So we're going to right click in the hierarchy and click Create Empty. This creates an empty object. So if you go to Transform, you can right click right here and click Reset to reset the transform back to 0. So we want one empty object here and one empty object here, because we want there to be able to have a point in the plane where we want the target to move. So let's move this up by 3, and let's move it on the x-axis by -7, since we're over here. And also, it is hard to see if we click out of it. We can't see it at all. But if we go here, we can click this little box right here to attach it with the object, so you'll be able to see it more. So now we're going to name this left position. We're going to do the same thing, create another empty, and name this right position. We're going to reset the transform. And the coordinates for this is going to be 3, 7, because we want it to be over here. And let's tag it with a red diamond. So now we can start scripting. So when you go to the target and go down to the bottom, click Add Component, and type target. Now click New Script, and click Create and Add. Now I have this target script in our assets. So we need to drag this script into the scripts folder. We can open the scripts folder, and then double click on the target script, and it'll open Visual Studio. And every time we open a fresh new script, we're going to have some base code, but we don't want any of this. So we can just delete all of this. So first thing, we need to create a variable. A variable is something to store pieces of information so you can use later. So we need to create a few of them. So for one variable, we need to make a public float move speed, and let's set that to 0.25f. So a float is a decimal. It's so an integer. We will use the data type int to describe that we want that this variable to be an integer, but we want it to be a decimal. So we need to put float so it can be a decimal, because integer is only accessible for changing whole numbers, while a float is able to change decimal numbers. So we put an f in front of here to show that it is a float. And we also, this is the name of our variable. So we need to create another one. Let's do public transform left position, or left, yeah. So this is a transform object. This will be able, so we can, and also what this public is that it can be accessible for inside of Unity. So if you save, make sure before you close out this, click Command S to save. Do this every time when you're gonna get out of this. And we go to back to our target object. We see that there is a blank called left position, because we can drag the left position in, and let's do that now. Drag it in so we have a reference point for what our variable actually is. So the transform is going to be this location right here. So let's go back to target, and also you can also go back to the script by double clicking on the grayed out box right here to get into the script. So we need to create more variables. So we need to create a public another transform name right position, and then we need a private. This means it can be only accessible inside the script. Bool moving right, and we need to default it, set it to false. A boolean is just a statement that either returns true or false. So next we need a rigid body 2D RB to have reference to our rigid body. So we need to create a method. So Unity has a few built-in methods in that, and one of them would be start. So the start method the start method is able to be used to when the script is was called very first. So when the game starts, this is the first line of code that will be run. So we need to RB is equal to get component rigid body 2D, and it's very important to do this because we need to assign the rigid body to the component rigid body inside of target. So that might sound confusing, but basically what I'm saying is we want to make sure we assign the rigid body 2D so we can have reference to it in the script. So next we want to create another method named as void update. So this will be called every single frame. So this will be called constantly. So if you have 40 frames a second, this code will be run 40 times. So we want if. So an if statement is like if something happens. So if transform dot position dot x. This is referencing this object. So if this object's transform at this x position is less than or equal to the left position, then we want moving right to equal to true, and we forgot to put dot position dot x. So this is just saying that if the target is so so if we know if we go to the left of a coordinate plane, we're going into the negatives. So we want if it's less than the last point, we want it to be to turn right back and go back to the other side, so it doesn't go off the screen. So moving right, we want to turn it to true. So when it turns to true, the target will change. So next we create another one called transform dot position dot x is greater than or equal to right position dot x. This is doing the same thing as the other one. It's just detecting if the target is greater than or equal to the right position. If it does, the moving right will be false, so it'll be moving to the left. So now we're almost done. Now we create do one more method called a fixed update, and this is just like the update, but this helps with physics. So we want so if moving right is true, then we want RB to move position to transform.position.x plus new vector 2 right position dot position dot x plus move speed times time dot fix delta time, and make sure to do that. So what the heck is this? Why is it graded? And it's getting here. Oh, right, because we want to get the RB dot position dot x. We don't even need RB dot position. Now we're good. Okay, so RB dot move position is to get the rigid body into, it's going to move the position to the right position. So it'll be moving right. It'll be heading towards the right position. So vector 2 is just a way of getting a transform or coordinates, and a vector 2 put as an x and y. So we need to put an x, which is the right position dot x, and then we need to add the move speed. So we need to add the speed that is going to be traveling there, and 0f, we don't want it to move on the y, so you can set it to 0. Then we do times dot fixed delta time. So what this does, it moves based on your frame rate. So if someone won't have a different experience if they're on a 60 FPS versus a 40 FPS. It'll be moving the same. So when you create an else statement, that is rb.move position, rb.position plus new vector 2, left position dot x minus move speed 0 times time dot fix delta time. Okay, so this is almost about the same, and else is just like if this is, so basically if this is not, if moving right is not true, then we want to move it towards the left. So we do the same thing, except we do left position because we want to get the left position instead of the right, and we do minus move speed because, like I said, on the left the coordinates are going down, so we want them to subtract when we get moved down the move speed, so it goes to the left. In 0f we're not moving on the y, so we don't need to put anything for that. And time.fixed delta time is because I explained that there, so that's why we do that. So if you do Command S and we get out of here, and make sure, and let's just do Command S inside the project, so save the project. Let's do Command S and go back to the target object, and we need to drag in our right position. So now if we press play, it should work. Yeah, there you go. So you have this object moving back and forth. So next we want to do is get the ball moving. So I'm going to drag the ball out so you can see, so it's not covered. And we need to add the same things to them. We need to add a rigid body 2D. We need to get rid of the angular drag, the gravity scale, and you can keep it to discrete, but we need to freeze on the X and Z because we only want it to be moving up and down. So we're going to add a circle collider 2D because it is a circle. And we're going to add another component called this ball. Click new script. Did it not work? Oh, new script, create and add. And let's Let me go find the previous zero. So yeah, that. So drag the ball script to the scripts tab and open up the ball scripts. So this is going to be very similar to the other one, except this one's a lot easier. The target script is probably our hardest one. The next one will just be modifying the target script into some simpler code, and it's just a lot easier from here. So we need to create another variable, public. What do we need? Oh, we don't need a, oh yes, public float move speed is equal to 0f. Or we can do 500f, because we want this ball to be moving fast. And we're going to turn it to float so we can modify the editor so we don't have to keep going back to the script. So we need to we also need to get a rigid body, RB. And as last time, it was the start function, and do RB equals gets component to the sharp brackets, then rigid body 2D. There we go. Now we need to create another fixed date. Now this time we're doing something different. So RB dot velocity equals new vector 2 0f, and then transform. No, we do transform dot position dot y plus move speed time dot fixed double time. So basically, a velocity is a new thing. It just makes it move. There's no certain point where we want to do it. We just want it to move up. We don't want it to go to a certain point. So you can use velocity just to bring it up. And we do new vector 2 because it's a little different format. And we add a 0f for the x, so we don't want it to move in the x, and we want it to move y plus the move speed. So it'll be moving on the x axis according to our move speed. And we do times dot fixed all the time. So we can do Command S, and that is it for that script for now. So if you go to the ball, we can see that the move speed is added, and let's press play. And we see that it moves up. Great. Try this again. Alright, that is just what we wanted. So let's do Command S just to save the project. And what we want to do is we want to create a prefab of this. So a prefab, we can do that by dragging the ball into the prefabs folder and deleting it from the scene. So we want to create a prefab because we want it to be not instantiated, but to be created into the scene when we press the mouse button. So when we press the mouse button, we want the shooter to shoot a ball. So a prefab is just an object that can be used. So if we click it, this prefab will be added to the scene and be able to go. So we need to do this by scripting though. So we go to the shooter, the shooter object. We don't need to add a rigid body or collider because it's not going to be doing any colliding or physics. It's just going to be creating an object. So we need let's name this shooter, new script, create an add. Let's go to assets and drag the shooter into the scripts folder. So now open shooter up. And we can delete this. And we want to create a variable. We need to create a public game object named ball. So we want to create a game object because the ball is a game object, and we want this to be able to reference that ball, that prefab that we made. So we go to void. Actually, yeah, let's do void update. Now we do if input dot get mouse button down 0 Okay, so basically we want to get endpoint. We want to check if there's inputs in the get mouse button down. So if our button is clicked, we want this to happen, and we put a 0 here because this signifies the left mouse button. If it was 1, it will be the right mouse button. If it was 3, it'll be the middle mouse button. But we just want the left click it. So we need to create an object, and the fancy word for creating an object in scripting is instantiate. So we want to instantiate an object. So we put the parentheses, and we need to instantiate the ball, but we're going to try to also do transform dot position. So where we want to instantiate where the target is, and we also want contorting dot identity. So this is just a fancy word for saying we don't want it to rotate at all. So contorting is for rotating physics, but we don't want it to rotate at all. So we do contorting dot identity, just a way of saying that we do not want it to move. So we'll save that, and we can get out of there. Now, if we go into the shooter, we are going to go back to assets, prefabs. Oh, we went back. So if we want to not do that, so go to shooter and click this little lock icon to lock it. So if you go here and we mess with other stuff, it won't change. It will stay there. So go back to prefabs, ball, and we want to drag those balls into our little slot right here. And then we need to Command S, save it, and let's click play. There we go. So now we can see that the ball shoots from the object. But now, if we collide with this target, nothing happens. So what we want to do when it collides with the target, we want to destroy the object. So if you go to target, and we go back into the target script, I forgot to unlock it. We need to create another built-in method, and this is where the collider is going to come in. So scroll down, and we create a void on collision enter 2D. So what this does, it's just detecting if something is colliding with this object. So if collision dot game object dot tag is equal to ball. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a tag to the ball object so that it is equal to ball. So the target is going to be detecting if a collision happens, and if the object that collided with it has a tag of ball, then we want this to happen. So we want to destroy the object in the collision.game object. Let's just say that we want to destroy the object that it collided with. So that's it for that. So you can save that and get out of it. But now we want to go over to our ball prefab, and where it says tag up here, we want to go down to the drop down and click add tag, and we want it to add ball. Click save. We got the ball. Then we can click this again and click ball. So now we have the ball tag. So now if we save the scene and go press play again, you can click it and it'll destroy the object when it clicks. Now what we want to do is we want to create some sort of score system. So when it hits the target, we can have some sort of score. And we also want this to start speeding up every time we hit it. So to create a score, we need to right click inside here. We need to you go to UI, and then you're going to click text on top. So if you click this and go inside the C and click F, oops, what's it doing that? You go inside here and click F, it'll zoom out so you can see everything. And now I have this giant canvas, but don't worry, it will fit the screen. So what we're going to do is we are going to reset the transform, and we are going to click this little icon, and we want to position it so it's on the top or right hand corner. So click Control Alt to put it on the top or right corner. And you can click this to go to the top or right corner. This is the pivot and the anchor, so it's anchored right there. So we want the width to be about 500, and the height is fine to stay at 100. And we want the color to be, we go down to the color, we want it to be white so you can see it easy. And we want the font size to be something like 80, so it's big. And we're gonna do score 0. So that's what we're gonna put for our score right now. If we go to game, we can see it right now. We can even bold it. If we go to font style, we can bold it if we want. So I might keep it as that because it looks nice. So now do Command S to save it, and we can go back to our target and press F again to zoom in to back in. So we can go back to our scene. So now what we're going to do is so every time I hit this, we want the score to increment by 1. That is fairly simple to do. So we can go to target, and we need to create a few more variables. And we are also, if we go to the very top, we are also going to need to create using Unity engine.ui. So it's we add this so we can also use the UI tools in the script. So we want to create a public int score instead of 0. And we don't need to do a float because a score isn't going to be a decimal. So we can set this set the 0. And this is even this shouldn't be public, this should be private because we don't want to be able to get modified outside of this. So we also want to create a public text called score text. So we have a text object and we named it score text. So you can save that and go down to the bottom. So after the collision detected, we want score to be incremented by 1. We can do this by pressing score plus plus. And then I forgot to mention, but I'm sure you saw this, but we always need to end our statement with a semicolon. But we've done a lot without me mentioning that, but hopefully you caught on for that. So score plus plus, it increments the score by 1, and we also want the text, the score text dot text to equal score plus score. So we want the text to be score and then add the number to it. So we've added a space so the number is going to be in that space. So that is that. And also, like I said, we want the move speed to be incremented by 0 point, being incremented every time we hit it. So after that, we're going to do move speed plus equals 0.25f. So we do plus equals because that's shorthand, but we can do move speed equals move speed plus 0.25f, but that's too long. So we can so instead of doing that, we just do plus equals 0.25f to say that we want to increment the speed by 0.25. So we save that and we can get out. And save the scene and press play. Now we go back and forth, and we forgot to add the text object. So if you go back to target, forgot to drag the text, drag that canvas right there. So now we can try it again. There we go. The score increments by 1. So now we need to create one more object, and then we'll be done with our game. We want to create a backboard. So when the ball goes out and it misses the target, we want the game to reset. So we want to create an empty object. Name this backboard, and reset the transform. And we put the x to something like 5. Not x, the y is something like 5. Or we can do something like 5.5 or 4.5. And we need to add a box collider to it and a rigid body 2D. and we can delete all of these options, and we need to freeze on all positions, and we need to scale it to something the same as this, so 5. That should be fine. Let's just 175 there. Okay, so we don't need to create a new script for this. We can do something for that and the ball script. So you go into the ball. So we also create another on collision enter 2D method, and we do if collision dot game object dot tag is equal to backboard. Then we want to destroy. Well, actually, we want this to reset the entire scene. So to do that, we need to go back into this, and we need to do something else using Unity Engine scene management. Then to do that, we do scene manager load scene. Then you get the name of the scene, which is the main scene. Your name might be different, so put your name inside the quotations and do Command S. And now we can exit out here. And if you go back to Backboard, we need to add that tag. So let's add tag. Let's name this Backboard. Save. And put the tag as Backboard. So now we can do Command S, save it, and then we can press play and see. Now, if we do that, the score increments by 1. And if we go outside, it resets. So good. So that is our basic game. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give a like, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of these tutorials. And also hit the bell so you can be notified when I do upload a tutorial. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.